We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. The washed up walk-ons, we're back, and we're 4-0. The walk-ons aren't 4-0. The walk-ons haven't done shit, right, Kev? I mean, not a damn thing. But
I don't know what our record is overall, but it's not undefeated. It's not even close.
We are going to go over that. But I'm going to start with this, and obviously this is the Colorado State recap. We are going to go over the Colorado State game, as many of you over the course of this weekend, basically immediately in that first half, started to feel a little bit more uneasy about our number 5 Hawkeyes than you would have liked. And we are going to address all of the issues, the non-issues, and everything in between. Not that Kevin and I are the most analytical football minds that there has been, but you come to this podcast for a little bit of Hawkeye, a little bit of BS, a little bit of fun, a little bit of entertainment. So we'll do it all. We don't have Drake here. Drake was going to be an integral part of this podcast because he did watch the game and he was an offensive guy. And there's some questions around the running game after Saturday and some other offensive questions. And I know this isn't Drake's job, right? But Kev, you are employed, right? You're expected to be places.
I do get a salary from an employer.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do not show up to said places and do said things, which I am obligated to do, I do not get paid the money I was promised, and that, which is fair. You know,
it is fair.
That's capitalism. I do for you, you give me this. You know.
And if Kevin Ward was to text his boss or, in a timely manner, reach out and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to, I have something going on. I need this day off. I need to show up late to this, yada, yada. You're more likely to be accepted with a little bit more or handled with acceptance and given a leeway. But when
of course, I work for a respectable organization. I give them a little bit of heads up, like, hey, I need this time off, or I can't be in them this day, whatever. It's like, sure, whatever, do what you gotta do, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a world of ask for permission or ask for
forgiveness, not permission.
Forgiveness versus permission. It's quite honestly the other way around.
Yeah, and all of this to say that that's essentially what Drake is doing. He didn't show up tonight. In fact, he hasn't responded to any text messages. He was
in Vegas, so there is a 5 to 10% chance that his heart is no longer beating.
There is that chance. But
it's still an underdog bet on that. But so we're going to continue to shit on him for not even giving us a heads up that he's not going to be on the podcast. So,
right,
I'm oftentimes not on the podcast, but I like to think I do a good job of letting you know, like, hey, it's not happening.
Right, and in fact, the precedent has been set on this because a couple of weeks ago you were in Vegas and got shat all over because you didn't show up
after giving y'all a heads up.
Right. And so now Drake
still did show up.
Right. And now Drake is basically mimicking that weekend. So Drake's not going to be here. We'll get his thoughts on some of these questions on Thursday's episode. But for now, you're going to have to go with whatever the mind of Tyler Kluver comes up with as far as a agenda. I think that we're going to have some good discussion. Now, interestingly enough, that leaves us with 2 people on this podcast, one of which who did not see the football game that we're talking about.
Tough.
That would be
tough.
And that would be Kevin Ward.
Yeah. Had the best buddy from high school getting married, and we had a discussion up before about the weddings in the fall, but when it's your best buddy, you gotta go. I was hoping that it was going to be a very non-dramatic game, and I just check the score every now and then and be like, all right, cool, I'm not missing a whole lot, Hawks rolling. Let me tell you what, I took the score at halftime, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? So, Kluber, you watched the game.
I did. And your question was valid. You, in fact, texted our group chat and said something along the lines of, can someone please explain to me why we're losing? And I'll be honest, in the first half, there wasn't a whole lot going. We piddled around. We didn't do much offensively. We couldn't get a long drive to go. No turnovers. In fact, I'm going to bring up the play-by-play here. The first half went like this: 3 plays and a punt for Colorado State to start the game. 6 plays and 17 yards of offense for the Hawks, punt. 7 plays for Colorado State, punt. Turnover on downs. They took a shot on 4th down early in that first quarter. Then we run 4 plays, punt. They run 9 plays, punt. A lot of punts. And Kev, in dramatic fashion, they brought this kid named Stonehouse, who out-punted Tory Taylor on Saturday, if you can believe it.
Really? Stonehouse is dropping bombs, huh?
I'm going to open up the box score here and see. I'm pretty sure he averaged 51.1 yards. Colorado State punt. 7 punts for Ryan Stonehouse, 358 yards, 51.1 average with a long of 59. Tory Taylor, 8 punts for 348 yards, only averaged 43.5, did have a long of 61. It was an absolute hip battle.
It was a punt festival, huh?
It was. And it's not what you want to see. It's not what Iowa wanted to see against the 1-2 Colorado State Rams, who have been.
What it will show you though is a team that has a good punter can make life difficult for a team that is on paper better than them.
This was a point that I brought up in the post-game radio show that I do. It goes to show we got a little taste of our own medicine of how truly effective good special teams are. I don't have the stats of where this Stonehouse kid put us, but our average field start position was much worse than it has been in the first 3 games, and it affected us. And it was largely due to their punter. He was absolutely balling out. He was taking Charlie Jones out of the game. It was really a clinic, to be honest. For those wondering why Tory might have had a less good day, almost 44-yard average is still a pretty good day. He had, I would say, the 2 punts that he didn't punt well on were really the snapper's fault. The snapping situation has been less stable in these first 4 games than your guy here would appreciate. I'm sure more than you guys appreciate as fans. And
well, let's put it this way. I haven't worried about a snap from the Iowa Hawkeyes since the time I walked onto campus in 2013 until this year. This year, the snaps have been my guy Kluve here, he'd put it on your hip 99 times out of 100.
Yeah. And people keep asking me, they're like, and I think Drake, this was something else I was going to bring up with Drake, because Drake goes absolutely irate when there is not a good snap. And you know what happened, Kevin, is I really lulled you guys in with my you
did. That's how you did a great job, man. Like, you just made it look so easy that it's so easy to shit on you. It's like, that's all you do. That's all you do. And you just did a great job.
Yeah.
And so that when someone doesn't do perfectly at the one job they do, everyone's like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah,
Especially
this is supposed to be easy. What's happening? And I had people on Twitter, I've had them asking me, Kluve, what's going on? Like, it's not that hard. Same thing. He has one job. Why hasn't the snapping been good? And my response is usually, well, I really try not to go the route of, well, we had Casey Kreider and, not to toot the own horn, but I was really, really consistent. And then Jackson Subert was really good for 2 years. And this is not a dig or crapping on Austin Spiewak and Luke Elkin, who is the true freshman long snapper for the Hawkeyes right now, who is doing all of the reps. And I also don't want to turn this into a special teams podcast where we just talk about long snapping, but what you guys are seeing there is a little bit of freshman nerves. He had to come in and save Spiewak a little bit in the Iowa State game, and he didn't really have time to think about it. And now he's been the guy. He's been, the starter. He's been with the ones in practice. He's had all week to let that sort of sink in on him for now 2 weeks, actually. And it starts to become a little bit of a mental game, especially when you're a freshman and you didn't really expect to be in that position in your first year. So they're going to figure that out. It's satisfactory for now. The kid does snap a really clean ball. His consistency has to get better, and I believe it will. Moving on.
For you.
Yeah.
At what point does it not become a mental thing and it's just muscle memory? Just go down, get your stance, and toss it back there.
Yeah. So what? You're right, and generally what I would say with experienced specialists is the more and more you get reps, game reps. They need to be game reps because it's very, very hard to simulate that. Imagine, best way to put this is you're a golfer, right? Kev, you're a golfer. Drake's a golfer.
Love golf.
You go out with your buddies and you're an okay golfer, right? And
I like to slap it around a little bit.
Yeah, you play a good round, right? Hey, I feel good.
I get my money's worth,
Right.
I hit a decent amount of shots.
Now imagine you actually enter somehow in this theoretical situation, you actually enter a tournament and there's now 70,000 people watching you. How do you think your swing would be? Would it be loose? Would you feel good stepping up to that first tee box?
A couple of bush lights might help, but
So
the old butthole might be a little bit tighter.
It gets a little tighter. The butthole gets a little tighter, right? And not only does that get tighter, but the shoulders get a little tight. The biceps get a little tight. Your back tightens up. Snapping a football, kicking a football, punting a football, hitting a golf ball, all of these things that are very just repetitive. Shooting a free throw is probably very relatable to a lot of people listening. These things are very easy on an empty field, in an empty gym, on a golf course by yourself. They become much harder when people are suddenly looking at you and expecting you to do well. Why is that? Because really nothing changes. There's no one physically affecting anything that you're doing. It's just that pressure of the game, man. It's honestly what makes it so great once you learn how to deal with it. But that's what that kid is going through right now. And he's honestly doing a very good job. Kevin, to answer your question, I would say that becomes muscle memory, because what happens is you go from snapping clean and all these things very relaxed to, okay, yes, I know how to snap a football, but do I know how to snap a football at a heart rate of 150 where I can't hear people and I'm on a cadence and I have to kind of sit in and I now have to stand up and run down the field. It's just a little bit different, right? So this kid is probably going to feel that all year to some extent. And then hopefully in year 2, it starts to catch a little bit. Now it's obviously individualized, but and that's a little bit of what we see with Spencer Petras as well, man. I mean, it's not just specialists that feel that.
I mean, this is his first year playing in front of crowds, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Think about how easy it is for you guys listening right now to go out in your backyard on a football Saturday, toss the ball around with your kids. Now, most of us, I would say 99% of us, in fact, all of us, none of us look as good as Spencer does throwing a football if we're just playing catch, right? Now imagine you have to go do that in front of 70,000 with people coming for your chin and defenders in the way. It just is different. And so, but obviously that's what they're being asked to do. So, hopefully he handles it well. And by the middle of the season here, another game or two under his belt, he starts to sink into that comfortability. But it's part of the excitement, man. It never fully goes away. You're dead inside if you don't feel that. And it's good. It's good to feel a little pressure.
I remember the first time I was taking like meaningful reps, like when it would have been 2015.
Yeah.
Like, getting tossed in the game. It's like, oh wow, this is like isn't practice. This is like, we've had like the public practices and the spring games and stuff like that before playing in front of fans. But like when it's like, oh, we're actually in a game now, it shouldn't feel different, but it does.
It counts.
And I'd say you get I just played special teams, but I'd say it took half the season for me to like realize like, okay, yeah, this is the norm. I go out and these reps mean something and matter.
It's something that can only be there's no other antidote to the situation. There is no, hey, here's what you have to do to block that out. The only thing that makes it better is more and more reps. One more game under your belt, to where, Kev, you probably echo this, that first swarm that we were a part of back in 2013, right? That first swarm.
Dude, I'm nervous about messing that up. Yeah. There's 0% chance of seeing the field that game, and you still get nervous.
And it's the most exciting. You can feel your heart thumping out of your brain moment in your life. And now circle all the way around to 5 years later, and you and I are leading the swarm out of the tunnel. Theoretically, we're playing major roles on the team now 5 years later. We weren't even playing that first year, but the heart rate's a lot lower. It's still up there, but the heart rate's a lot lower. The focus is a lot more dialed in. The stadium is not such an environment that it's awe-inspiring anymore.
Right. I was just going to say, you're not like taken in by the environment as much.
Correct.
Like there's still like certain times where like you get caught up in the energy of the stadium. It could be like, I remember the Ohio State game, the energy of the second half, when we started like racking up on them. That was like one time I remember just taking a step back and realizing like taking in the crowd and everything. But, like senior year, like even like when the crowd's juiced up or you're in a hostile away environment, I'd say pretty good at just going out and playing football now.
Yeah. It's just.
But freshman year, especially when you're like your red shirt and you're just watching, it's just like, oh my God, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. What the hell?
It's stupid.
There's 70,000 people right here.
It's
crazy.
It's nuts. So that's a little bit of what's happening, and maybe a good description of what a lot of these freshmen are feeling when they go into the game. In fact, we're going to talk about in a second here a few freshmen that played a large role in the game on Saturday. But first, I want to mention, and Kevin, the Patreon continues to grow. These people are crazy. We're currently sitting at 199 Patreon members. The next member.
Oh, give me that 200.
The next member that signs up is 200, and that means we will be at that point moving forward with our next exclusive Patreon t-shirt, Walk On Army t-shirt. So one more person signs up, and we'll be releasing that information very soon. We want to thank those new members: Jana, Kay, BJ, Mike, Roger, Rob, Daniel, Rob, and Matthew. You guys are absolute legends, and you guys are you're doing big things. So we're going to take a quick break so that we can, throw the ads in here where they see it's not in the middle of the conversation. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about why it's so disrespectful that Colorado State would come into Kinnick and try to win a football game. Why would they do that? When we come back. And we're back. What I mentioned before the break was something that I think a lot of fans they don't forget, but I think it's something that you have to sort of logically break down in your mind when you're in the emotion of a football game. Yes, we paid Colorado State $1 million to come play us. We pay those teams to come play us. Yes, they should not beat us. Yes, on paper, we have guys that match up better than them. But when it's all said and done, you put 11 on the field and those guys are on scholarship. Kevin says it all the time. Those guys are on scholarship too. Those coaches get paid to win too. And Kev, why, gosh dang it, why would Colorado State try and make this a game?
That's
why would they?
Rude of them, right?
Yeah.
We gave them $1 million and they didn't just let us win. That's kind of rude, right?
They should just be rolling over.
If you pay me $1 million, you can do whatever you want to me. I don't give a shit.
So I talked about basically how the first quarter went. It was punt, 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 punt. They actually got down into our territory and went for it on a 4th down where they could have easily kicked a field goal for points. But if you're a Colorado State team, you have to take those chances, and that's why they did that.
Right. They're not going to win the game scoring 3 points.
Right. So late in the first quarter, Iowa's 3rd possession, we get the ball on our 13-yard line. And it's right before the end of the quarter. There's 12 seconds left. We do a little pass complete to Nico for 4 yards. They actually run up and snap another play. I don't know if Colorado State was just kind of thinking that the clock would run out or we would run up the middle or something, but Goodson breaks one off for 27 up to almost midfield at the 44. And that ends the first quarter. So we feel a little bit momentum going into the second. Still a 0-0 ball game. And here comes the freshman, right? Arlen Bruce from Ankeny. We run a nice little, not a reverse, but a sweep, sort of a motion sweep. The defender actually jumps it, the far side linebacker to the side we were running. Arlen cuts up inside of him and takes it across midfield for a 13-yard gain. The next play, Tyler Goodson gets a run for no gain. The next play after that, Spencer Petras does what we've been waiting for him to do all year. He did it to Charlie Jones for a touchdown at Iowa State, not quite as long. He throws a gorgeous ball up into the moon, and it comes down into the other freshman receiver's hands, Keegan Johnson, for a 43-yard touchdown. Keegan beat his man down the sideline just one-on-one. He was just better. And he's going to be better than a lot of those guys. We're going to see a lot of Keegan Johnson touchdowns like this in the future. A beautiful vertical passing play that Petras absolutely put in the breadbasket, Kevin. And it's something that I think a lot of Iowa fans finally sort of got happy about.
Taking shots downfield?
Yeah, taking shots.
Yeah. So Phil would call those 50-50 balls.
Yeah.
Because there's like a 50% chance that either A, you catch it, or B, the ref's going to call pass interference on the cornerback. So that's why those have gotten awfully popular. Is teams just taking shots, and odds are those are hard balls to pick off, and if they do get picked off, like a punt anyway. So that's why offensive coordinators tend to like them. But
so basically, what happens
doesn't actually end up being out 50% of the time. It works in your favor.
Right. Yeah. No, I get it. So Iowa finally gets something on the board. Start of the second quarter. All right, let's go roll. Well, we kick off to them. They run a 3.5-minute drive. They punt. Then we get it back. We run a 3-play drive. We punt. And that was one of the punts where it was the bad punt of the day. We got 4 yards deep in our territory. Again, we were pinned by their punter, and low snap. Torrey has to rush 22-yard shank out of bounds, and they get a field position start at the Iowa 35-yard line, right? So to answer your question, Kev, the reason we were losing is because the defense on the scoring possessions for the other team had an average starting position on their negative, 30-yard line, basically. Colorado State had 30 yards to go on both drives.
Gotcha.
That's how the first one went.
I mean, that just goes to show that defense, really, both sides of the ball, like, complementary football is such a beautiful thing. It goes both ways. Defense getting 3 and outs, and special teams maybe getting a 10-yard punt return puts the offense in great field position.
Mm-hmm.
The offense, even if they don't score a drive, get a few first downs, pin them deep, makes it a lot easier to play defense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have been winning field position battle a lot this year, and that's been helping out our defense. So you give them two short fields, points are generally bound to happen when you got less than 40 yards to go.
Correct. And I think this is where in the podcast is a good spot to say, for those that are wondering, oh no, what's wrong with our defense? And you don't really make that connection of, oh, on their touchdown play, they started on Iowa's 35-yard line. And then we're going to get to the second score in just a second, but they start on the Iowa 23-yard line. So it was even worse. The defense didn't play poorly. Sudden change. Yes.
Well, you know what my favorite Phil Parker quote was?
Tell me.
When a fireman shows up to a burning house, they don't ask who started the fire.
Yep.
You got to put the damn fire out.
Got to put it out. Hawks were not able to.
Doesn't matter that you got the ball on the 34-yard line or the 20-yard line going in. You just got to put out the fire.
Yeah. And they really did. So on that first touchdown, the defense held they got this. This is where we hurt too, Kev. The Colorado State Rams were fantastic in the first half on third down. They were 9 of 13 at one point. And in this touchdown drive alone, they converted a 3rd and 11. It went 1st, 2nd, 3rd down, another 3rd and 11. And then it went 1st, 2nd, 3rd down and scored on 3rd and 9. So 3rd and 11, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 9. Does that make you want to puke?
That's unacceptable.
It's bad.
Unacceptable. The thing that is more concerning is 9 of 13.
That was, and it got a lot better.
Get off the field. Yeah. Well, I'd hope so, because you don't win if you give up 75% plus of third down conversions.
Correct. Now,
don't want that number at less than 40.
To recap those that one drive. In fact, this one touchdown drive by them, it was. If we take out this 4 minutes of a shanked punt and then a 35-yard drive by them with 3 third and long conversions, the game really doesn't look this bad. And I know that's not how football works. They converted 2 of those 3rd and longs with their dual threat quarterback running for a first down. And I know that that's not something that is just like, oh, well, yeah, we have to stop dual threat quarterbacks. It's not so much that the defense was breaking down in coverage. We just have to make sure we contain their other third,
which is an easier fix on Sunday morning watching the film
mm-hmm.
versus coverage breakdowns or getting gashed and we don't have guys in the right gaps and stuff.
Right.
So,
and their other third
that makes you feel a little bit better about how they gain yards on Sunday morning because that's an addressable fix.
Yes.
If it becomes a lingering problem, then that's something we gotta address further, but.
One of those
easy coaching. Yeah.
One of those conversions was the touchdown. He ran right up the gut. It might have even been more of a planned play. I don't know.
I think I saw the highlight of that. That looked like a quarterback draw all day.
Yeah.
Like they ran routes, but they do that to get the linebackers
right
chasing like an out route. So it looked like a designed quarterback draw.
Their other conversion, the 3rd of 3 on that, was to their really, really probably NFL tight end who is leading the country by almost a double margin in targets for tight ends. And he completed a 11-yard pass on a 3rd and 11, and they just barely got the 3rd down conversion. And he was very good. So if you could feel good about that in any way, then that's how that went down. Where this game really got dicey for a limited amount of time and where everybody really got pissed off was we actually started to put together a nice little play, a nice little drive, 5 plays for 59 yards. Petrus throws a bomb to Keegan Johnson, another one, a bomb to Keegan Johnson for 49 yards down to the Colorado State 24 on the first play. right? So we're on our 27. We flip the field. We're now on their 24. The next play, we take a loss on a run. Then we go pass complete to Laporta, pass complete to Laporta, and we run a tunnel screen that is absolutely jumped. They were juiced to the gills and just jumped the shit out of it. The DB makes an incredible catch as the ball's like kind of hanging on their bodies. And he returns this thing 62 yards down to the Iowa 23. This is at least a 10-point swing, if not a 14-point swing, to where Iowa should be up 10-7 or up 14-7 going into half. And instead we're down 14-7. And I got to be honest, Kev, the breath was a little bit sucked out of Kinnick. It was not a good spot.
I believe you, dude. I believe you. That's who do we play? Would have been our senior North Texas. We play North Texas our senior year, and we go into half. They score a late touchdown.
Yep.
For right before the end of the half, we're down like 17-14, 14-10, something like that. And I'll tell you what, it doesn't feel good going into the locker room losing to a team that you know
should not be beating you.
An inferior team, right? Exactly.
And let me tell you, the fans,
when you walk back out there, like the fans, like you can feel like their energy too. Like you can feel when fans are excited. You can feel when they're pissed off. You can feel when they're like kind of doing on their nails a little bit nervous. Like what the hell's going on here?
And you didn't even have to feel it because you could hear how mad the fans were as we went into halftime. The Boo Birds came out and the Hawks got booed as they ran back into the tunnel. I said but I'm not a part of that anymore. There were some boos, and that happened to us several times as well. How do you feel about that?
Hey, if you don't want to get booed, play better. That's
how I feel too. And I think a lot of fans will actually be surprised by that because we're big boys. We're 18 to 22 years old. The coaches are all, I'm 40. I'm a man. The guys know they're also disappointed. You don't have to boo for them to be disappointed, right? Like, but we know that you're disappointed in the fans as well. But there were several times where we got booed going into halftime, and I would kind of hear it and look up and look at the fans and be like, well, they do kind of have a point.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's like, like if we were playing well or if we competing, we wouldn't be getting booed right now. It's like,
right.
I don't think it really, can't really say it affected any money or our teammates.
No.
We're just speaking for ourselves here, but I can't imagine that anyone in that locker room is really affected by the fans booing. We obviously feel much worse about the way we're playing than the fans do.
It's a non-factor in the guys. The guys don't even think about it after they're 30 steps up the tunnel. The focus is already on, okay, what are we doing to get better here? What's the adjustments, all that stuff. They don't even remember it. So yeah, there was people who wanted to know, like, how do you feel about that? Like, I know it's not all fan, like they were trying to like try to make up for it or like to talk, like, I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. But this is what happens, Kev. You let a team hang around that has 11 guys, that has 85 scholarships. They have players too. There's some good plays. You don't get anything rolling. Now you're down 14-7 at half, and we got to figure out what's going on. Iowa comes out of the half.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you're in a dogfight. I mean, just think about when we were big dogs and we're either winning or we're right there with a team that's supposed to kick the shit out of us. Like, once you get into that second half and like it's a fight, it becomes like a dogfight. You don't know how it's going to go from here. So, you can when you're supposed to win these quote unquote games that you're a huge favorite in. When you go into the half like up big, like you're supposed to be, or something like that, the second half just goes a lot easier, right? Because the other team, they're probably still playing pretty hard, but like they don't think they can win probably, and the game goes easier. Okay. Once you have a team like that playing with some confidence, trying to knock off a type 5 team, like, all right, well, guys, we made our bed. We got to sleep in it. we got to turn this shit around, but we're going to get their best shot in the second half.
Exactly. You allow them to hang around, and now they believe. They now believe, because in the beginning, their energy and what they bring to the field, everything's telling them, okay, you can't hang with this team. But right now it's 0-0 and we're both fresh. So we're going to go see what happens. And if that effort by a Colorado State team or a Kent State or whoever, right? Even, and I'm going to talk about a little bit how even college football looks this year, especially after yesterday. Iowa is not the only team who's got a lot of people asking questions right now. You play this mini game of, okay, we literally just played 50% of the game and we came out on that 50% on top. We just proved that we can do it. And now they're thinking over in their locker room, well, shit. Yeah, this is a cool stadium. They've packed this thing. They're black and gold all over the place. They're the big number 5 team, but we're up 14-7 and we know they're not mythical superheroes, right? The number 5 doesn't make them gods among men. It does nothing. And that's when people start to get a little confidence. Now, Kevin, personally, as we roll into the Big Ten schedule here, I think that this was really, really good for the Hawks, right? Not something we would sign up for, but because it happened, you get an absolute chance for the team to respond to adversity. How does the number 5 Iowa Hawkeyes 2021 team respond to adversity when faced with it?
Yeah, and luckily we're responding to adversity when we still come out with a W. Now, if anything, if there were any notions, and I don't have any reason to believe they were, but if there are any notions in that locker room that their shit didn't stink, those are gone.
Right.
All right? Those are gone. They know. I gotta believe that entire team knows they did not play the way they wanted to play yesterday.
Correct.
I gotta believe that, and that can be good for a team, especially, hey, you got a couple of big wins. They gave you the top 5 ranking in the country. If you're listening to the noise, there's some experts out there that have you in the college football playoffs. It gets hard to block that stuff out. You have to, but it gets hard to block that stuff out. Mm-hmm. And if that gets into your psyche that, hey, we're supposed to just go in there and win this game. I know we talked about it on the preview episode, but if anything, you get punched in the mouth a little bit. It gives you a chance to recalibrate, respond, and go into the Big Ten schedule knowing hey, every team that's going to face us now is going to give us their best shot.
Yeah, and I think that's something that may get lost here, and I want to explain it for fans. I don't think in any way, because we talked about the trap game concept, right? Why? And now people are probably well, clearly that doesn't hold up because it was they overlooked Colorado State. I in no way, just like Kevin, I don't think they overlooked Colorado State. Sometimes you play in close football games that, if you played 10 times, might not look that way the other 8 or 9 games, but it just so happens that they get you on one game, right? And it's not.
Sometimes you can have a good week of preparation, and it just doesn't follow through on Saturday.
Right, and a lot of that, Kev, something that happened was Colorado State actually came out in a defensive front, showing a bunch of defensive pressure and blitzes that they had not done at all in the first 3 games. And Iowa was a little bit unprepared for it. And as you know, where is our most inexperienced part of our offense right now? It's at the line. And so those freshmen, those young guys with little experience, they come out and then this defense is suddenly hitting them with a front that they didn't practice all week. That is going to cause some problems. And that, for those listening, is why the first half looked like it did offensively. That's one of your answers. Now, again, adjustments, halftime. Look what happened. We come out, it's 17-0 in the second half. And honestly, after we sort of tied it up, it didn't really feel like Colorado State had anything going after we tied the ball game. I'm not going to go through the second half like I did the first half, but there was a much better sense of control in that second half. And that's what you want to see. Now, for those mad that Iowa only beat Colorado, a 1-3 team as the number 5 team in the nation by 10 points, be mad about it. But Iowa plays in close football games, and you're going to see a lot of games that are closer than this one in the Big Ten schedule as we roll on here. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second, and some more about the close games around the country. But once again, we're going to take a quick break for the advertisements. We'll be back in a second with that. And we're back. I want to mention, Kevin, that this probably feels like, because it's confirmation bias. Because no one else listening to this podcast is a fan of Oklahoma, right? You'd go listen to an Oklahoma podcast if you were, and they're probably saying some of the same stuff. Everyone right now is like, God dang it. We're supposed to be a number 5 team. Clearly, we haven't shown that. We don't deserve to be up there. And I think if you look across college football right now, outside of Alabama and Georgia, I don't think there's a definitive, and maybe Oregon, I don't think there's a definitive team that hasn't had a game or a moment or two where their fan base is like, we don't deserve to be in the top 10. Oklahoma barely escapes Nebraska last week, barely escapes West Virginia last night. They're supposed to be the number 3 team in the country, right? Penn State probably is the third best team when you're talking about that. They've handled their stuff the best, maybe behind Alabama and Georgia. And that's why I have them ranked ahead of Iowa in the power rankings that I do each week. But Iowa State, number 14, Iowa State loses their Big 12 opener. They're the cross-state rival. Their expectations for the 2021 season and their supposed to be best team ever are changing in Ames.
They were thinking college football playoff 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
A close UNI game.
Yep.
Lost to the Hawks. I think they beat out UNLV, but then another loss opened up the Big 12. They're starting to question themselves. Kind of sucks though. I mean, Iowa's resume took a big hit this week.
Yep.
Not only with the close win versus Colorado State, but Iowa State losing, not good. Indiana with a close win over a Western Kentucky team.
Yeah.
They haven't looked as good as expected.
Right.
We said it after the first 2 weeks, Iowa has the best resume in the country. That's not exactly valid anymore.
Probably not anymore.
If you win all your games, it doesn't matter.
Right. And I keep seeing people. There were a couple people that were like, "Sucks that Iowa State lost. Now our schedule that we've been bragging about doesn't hold up. Good thing we play." And we're actually coming up on 3 games that are an undefeated Maryland team, a potential 4-1 Purdue team, and then a undefeated Penn State, an undefeated Penn State game, and then a potential 4 or 5-1 Purdue team. So we have these people who have good records coming up on our schedule. But again, what you just said reigns supreme. It doesn't matter. Your strength of schedule and all that, your resume doesn't matter if you got 12-0 next to your name, right? Or 11-1. So
right. And it's not something you can control anyway. So
right.
Don't worry about it.
So nothing to worry about as a fan there. But Clemson, the mighty Clemson Tigers, now sitting at 2-2 after they get knocked off by NC State. Texas A&M, good call, Kev, on one of your bets. We actually forgot to go over our bets of the weekend, but Arkansas was one of Kevin's Ward's winners, and they go in and handle Texas A&M. Let's actually go over those quickly because little unfortunate, because I was looking pretty darn good. Notre Dame, first of all. Oh, by the way, the Badgers who run the West, fans in Madison right now are pulling their hair out because they have no idea what's going on with the Badgers. Notre Dame plus 6.5 cover by a lot. That was my pick, by the way. UCLA wins. What, Kev?
So back to your Notre Dame pick. We're not going to talk about it. So I was in a
What was that? You broke up there.
Be staying at the hotel the Badgers. I was in Chicago for a wedding.
Yeah.
It just happened to be staying at the same hotel the Badgers were.
Oh, you were at the same hotel.
Yeah.
You sabotaged
Badgers
them.
getting on the bus. That didn't sabotage them. We were at the hotel bar a little late, but you know, my buddy's getting married the next day. Badgers looked a little sleepy getting on the bus. Sent that to the group chat.
Yeah, Kevin.
Cameron ND.
Yep. Kevin did call that, and it was one of my picks. And I said before, you can go back and listen to it. I said, until the Wisconsin Badgers prove that they can score on offense, I'm not taking them to cover a spread. Notre Dame embarrassed them. Graham Mertz, who after game one of his career in the red and white looked like a potential future Heisman winner, has looked god awful through 4 interceptions and 2 pick sixes in the fourth quarter. Wisconsin's looking for answers big time. So all of that to be said, outside of Georgia and Bama, there are fan bases all over the place right now who are in the top 15, in the top 20, in the top 25. Hell, Michigan State, who was me and Drake's pick for -4.5 at home versus the Nebraska Frosties, they don't cover. They win by a field goal late in the game. And they had just entered the rankings this week. So yes, that number can be a little bit, it puts these fake feelings and these fake expectations on a team where, oh man, if you're ranked in the top 10, you shouldn't struggle. There should be no struggle in your football games. And it's just not true.
Just because for the past 6 years, you know, the Ohio States, Bama's, Clemson's, you know, that kind of the Notre Dame's kind of fringe there. But like the top 5 teams in the country have just been rolling people all year long until it gets to the college football playoff.
Correct.
That's not happening this year. And I'd say that's phenomenal for the sport.
Love it.
I love it.
Love it.
Love it.
And and it feels crappy when it's the Hawkeyes who are displaying that sort of theme in a 24-14 victory over a Colorado State team. But you should enjoy that as a college football fan, because it means that basically every football game you watch has the potential to be an absolutely great game. Before we move on here to finish up this episode, let's just quickly go over these picks. Not a good week for the walk-ons. So the Notre Dame pick hits for me. UCLA beats Stanford 28-24. For those math wizards out there, that's 4 points. They were favored by 4.5. That's a loss. Michigan State, a loss. So I go 1 and 2. Kevin, Michigan, another one of those fan bases who is ranked in the top 20. They skate by the Rutgers Scarlet Knights by 7.
So I was following along. It was a 20-point spread. They end the half at 20-3. I'm thinking I'm golden. You know, I go to the bar at the wedding, have a few cocktails, you know, check my phone like an hour and a half later, and it's 20-13. I'm like, what the hell happened to Wolverines coming out in the second half? You know?
Yep.
So that was disappointing.
And we'll talk more about this, but Michigan has maybe the most glaring offensive week. Iowa fans think that the Iowa offense has problems. Michigan has the most glaring weakness in all of the Big Ten on the offensive side of the football. They cannot throw it. They absolutely cannot throw the football. Their quarterback
lost their best receiver week 1.
Yeah, their quarterback through 4 games has 35 completions on about 50 attempts and has thrown for about 450 yards in 4 games. And all they do is run. Yep.
Makes it easy to play defense.
Yep. So Michigan 0 for 1 for Kevin. Arkansas covers 5.5 easy, ends up beating Texas A&M. Indiana struggles with Western Kentucky. Like Kevin said, they have not looked like they were hoping to this year as well. So Kevin matches my 1 and 2 record. Drake goes 0 for 3 on the weekend as Tampa Bay loses in Los Angeles. The Rams look like the real freaking deal, which is great because they're actually my team if I'm going to cheer for somebody. Ravens do not cover 7.5 against the Detroit Lions, 19-17 that final. And then he also piggybacked that Michigan State pick. So the walk-ons go technically 1 and 7 for the day, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, and 0 for 3.
Two. Both We had 2 wins. You had a win, I had a win.
Or 2-6 on the day. Yeah, sorry.
Oof, not good, boys. Not good.
Not
that
good.
segment's not even fun anymore.
No,
We have to change the name.
It's just gonna have to be Ward's picks. Oh man.
I don't even want my name attached to that segment.
But you know what? Yep.
Silver lining. Beef bet of the week hits.
The beef bet of the week hits Western Michigan. I don't even remember what it was. -2.5, I believe.
Yeah, at home versus San Jose State.
And beef made a bunch of people some money. And so that beef, we have a graphic, like I said, and everything. Beef bet of the week hits. So that is the recap on that. Okay. What else?
You Chicago listeners out there, though, that did the old Barstool Sports promo. You're getting plus 1985 odds on the Bears spread.
Wow.
If you were smart, took that, hedged the shit out of it with the Browns, you made a free couple $100.
Yep.
Oh.
True. I did not do that. But
well, you didn't live in Chicago. So you had to be in Chicago.
Oh shoot, I see. So that brings us to this. We're 4-0, Kevin, which turns out is the best we could be right now. And
you tell me we can't be 5-0 right now?
We can't be 5-0 because we've only played 4 games. We are actually on paper. Okay. We are on paper as we're doing as good as we could possibly do. Now, those that listen to the podcast, those that follow me on Twitter, you know I'm an optimist, right? And I always find the good. I'm always the person who sees what could potentially be and what is developing as opposed to what is lagging on the field and what isn't happening for the Hawkeyes. And I think I bother a lot of people who like to be negative on Twitter with that, and I love doing it. That being said, Kevin, we go into an away matchup to reopen the Big Ten schedule now next week against Maryland. How should we feel about the Iowa Hawkeyes right now? I believe the line opened up today at Hawkeyes -4 at Maryland this Friday night.
I think we're going to learn a lot about them this weekend. Mm-hmm. The Friday night game is going to be something a little different. It shouldn't be that hard to handle, but it's going to be a little bit different. You got to adjust the schedule. You take out the pads for the week, and you just go shells most likely. But this might be a team that still needs some padded practices. I don't know. It'll be interesting to. But yeah, obviously we won't know how KF handles it, but what should we expect? Now, I still got to believe we're the superior team, and Vegas obviously believes that too. But Maryland is a team that I think could possibly pose some problems for the Hawks.
Yep, I've got some stats right here for those listening. Coming into this game, and again, this is not a Big Ten set of stats, right? This is Maryland's played some out. I mean, for Iowa, we've played a couple decent opponents, but Maryland's played a couple cupcakes. Iowa averaging 28.8 points a game, Maryland averaging 37.3. As we go through these, you're going to notice that Maryland's offense is their strength, which for this year's Iowa team is good because our strength is our defense. Points allowed per game, they're only allowing 14. We're allowing 11. And I think Phil is probably still pissed that that's double digits right now. They are totaling 520 yards per game, and they have Tua Tagovailoa's. They have Tua's brother, and he has thrown for 1,340 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 1 pick. That basically doubles Petrus's stats on all the stat lines. They've got a couple really explosive offensive weapons. So the matchup's going to be their offense versus our defense. And then honestly, where we're going to win this game is probably going to be on our offensive side of the ball. What can we do to their, call it average defense, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a game where we can expect the defense to hold them to 10 points and
Right.
squeak by and win with 2 touchdowns. I think we're gonna have to put the ball in the end zone a couple times, more than a couple times to win this game. But that being said, the defense has a challenge above it. The only game I watched from Maryland so far this year was the Maryland-Illinois game, and I'll be honest, that game I really wasn't impressed with what I
Right.
saw from Maryland offensively. I guess not really defensively either. Maybe I think their defense is okay. I think they have an okay defense,
Yep.
but obviously our offense is going to need to perform in order to put up some points against them.
Correct.
Yeah, like you said, they have some weapons, some guys that they can get the ball to. What's his name? Talia, something like that.
Yeah, it's Talia, Taulia. Talia.
Yeah. He's
Tunga
good.
Vailoa.
He's not Tua.
He's not Tua. He's Tawa. He's Tawa, not Tua. Here's another thing. They played Kent State this week. So we played Kent last week. They played Kent State this week. Almost the same spread. We beat Kent State 30-7. They beat Kent State yesterday 37-16. So they allowed more points. They scored one more touchdown than we did. It's really a similar sort of result. And we'll get into breaking them down on Thursday a little bit more, along with obviously Drake's thoughts from this weekend, because I'm sure all of you are hoping to hear a little bit of Drake ranting. You didn't get any of that in this podcast. You got level-headed football talk that was actually sort of thought out and had structure to it. But Drake will be back, hopefully, unless he did die. Again, the odds on that, Kev, are not zero. So
they're going up by the minute
because he still hasn't responded. You're right. We are happy that you tuned in. It was and I didn't talk about it as much as I wanted to because I got to sit in the press box this weekend. I guess I'll just say it now here at the end of the podcast because we've given the people what they want at this point. Huge shout out to Walk-On Army members, Doug and Patty Borman. They have supported the podcast for some time now, and this past week hit me up sort of late notice. Hey, we've got a couple tickets. You want to come up and sit in the press box with us? My wife and I were able to go up and experience the game. First time I've ever watched the game from the press box. It was an absolutely incredible experience, completely different than sitting out in the sun in the bleachers. And those two are absolute legends. And I don't even know where I'm going. What?
I hope you had a happy birthday.
I did, man. I did. The Hawks got the win. I had a weekend full of indulging in food that I don't normally allow myself to eat because, here at the Washed Up Walk-Ons, Drake, Tyler, Kevin, we like to keep it pretty clean. Got some training and fitness goals that we keep in check. So, had a great birthday. It was a great game, and we will be back again on Thursday. But again, thank you guys so much. I know where I was going with all this. The best birthday present that I could possibly have is the fact that you guys, clearly you supported us while we wore the jersey and while we were playing, but now in this crazy, ridiculous Washed Up Walk-Ons podcast venture that we have gone on over the past 3 years, you continue to support us, and the support continues to grow, and the reach of our brand and our podcast and our show, and hopefully us being able to entertain people continues to grow as well. And that is honestly just incredible, and we're so thankful. So hopefully we answered a few of your yeah.
Quick tell the people where to get their Kinnick shirts, their Kinnick East shirts again before they go out to Maryland.
Yes. If you guys are traveling out to Maryland, right? And at this point, you're listening to this on Monday, so you've got a couple days. If you want to if you want to hang out and do some stuff over the weekend and you're taking an extended stay, you're not only just going to the game, but you're going to hang out. They are doing a full weekend of events starting Thursday night. All of those details at kinnickeast.com. And we already had a couple people who were going out to the game DM us and say, hey, man, thanks for mentioning that. Now I have plans. Now I have tickets. Now I have parking, all this different stuff. So go to kinnickeast.com for all of that. And yeah, good call, Kev. But for Kevin and myself, that is episode 252. We hope we answered some of your questions. Hopefully the Hawks can answer a few more of those on Friday night. You'll hear us on Thursday. That's 252. Hawks by a milli. And we'll talk to you next time.